Hi guys, right back to the middle tier. The third team was last year's biggest disappointment. I think this year he could reemerge and definitely challenge in the playoffs. And if some things go right, he can be a top 2 team. He could be in one of the in the finals. It's Team Get Some. I think his biggest question mark is at quarterback. He has Jay Cutler, who I personally think is a top-tier quarterback. But the problem is he doesn't have any top-flight receivers yet, and his offensive line will not facilitate the Mike Martz offense, because Mike Martz offense is a lot of 7-step drops. So we'll see how that works out and see if he can keep his interception rates down. But his backup quarterback, Donovan McNabb out of Washington, I think Donovan's going to have a really mediocre year. I definitely think he's going to finish out of the top 15 of quarterbacks. I think he's going to realize the differences between playing in Andy Reid's offense and then going to Washington, where he has definitely a lot less talent. So his quarterback spot is definitely the weakest. We'll see if one of them play well. I think Cutler definitely has the chance of being a top 10 quarterback, and if he does, you got to watch out for Get Some. His running back, Cedric Benson and D'Angelo Williams. I love D'Angelo Williams. I love him as a fantasy back, and I hate him at the same exact time because you just never know who's going to have a good week. You don't know if it's going to be Jonathan Stewart or if it's going to be D'Angelo Williams. So I would have a really hard time trusting D'Angelo Williams as an every-week starter for me. Cedric Benson is definitely a workhorse. If his body stays in line in Cincinnati, you can see him having another solid year, a top 15 back. In his flex spot, he's got Pierre Garçon out of Indianapolis. Pierre has been a sexy pick through the drafts this year. He finished top 30 in receivers last year. I definitely see him in the top 30 this year, but I do not think that he's going to have the effect that some analysts are saying he is. I think he's going to be in that 20 to 25 range. With Peyton Manning throwing to you, it just matters on who gets the ball. But they have way too many weapons down at the goal line to be going to Pierre as much as they do, now that defenses will finally start recognizing him with his speed. On the other hand, you have his strongest player, you have Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson's a pure beast. He's the best receiver in the league, fantasy-wise and player-wise. He's going to remain that way. He's going to get 200-plus points. Donald Driver from Green Bay, like I said, anybody on offense in Green Bay is a plus. Brad Shalek out of Philly, I think he's going to be actually a top 5 tight end this year. He was the number 4 last year. I think he's going to have the same year, between that 8 to 10 points per game. Cove is going to go to him a lot this year as his safety valve. On his bench, Jamal Charles, Steve Bretson, LaDainian Tomlinson, Devery Henderson, and Kevin Kolb. Very strong bench. I think the biggest thing with Get Some this year is who he starts and when he starts them. If he gets a little lucky with starting the right people in the right weeks, you're going to see Get Some in the playoffs. But if he guesses wrong, if he starts Jamal Charles over Pierre one week and Jamal Charles lays the egg and Pierre doesn't, I mean, that's where you're going to see it. I think Get Some, it's going to be all about his management and his feelings on this one, and what he does week to week with his matchups. But I definitely think he's a matchup team. I think he's a playoff team as long as he makes some good picks. Our fourth team in the middle tier is last year's number 4 team. U of M sucks, which I can completely agree with. Paula's team, she's solid throughout. I don't think she has any game breakers other than Ray Rice, who personally I think is going to be the number 1 fantasy back this year. Trying to trade for him, she gave me the kibosh. But what are you going to do? And Ray Rice, he's a great keeper, too. You're going to be able to keep him for a long, long time. And throughout the maturation of Joe Flacco, you know they're going to be feeding the ball to Ray Rice a lot more. Tom Brady, you know, when you're sleeping with Giselle, you're going to be a top 10 quarterback. We'll see how his hair plays into it. I think with that haircut, though, he's got that Jonas Brother haircut. I think he's going to struggle a little bit this year. They're trying to cut him slack and say 2 years for the knee injury. I see Tom Brady being about a number 6, number 7, number 8 quarterback. I don't think he's going to be in that elite 5 like a lot of people would predict. Ryan Matthews as the second running back. He's the rookie out of San Diego. I think he's going to be good. Everybody thinks he's going to be good. I don't like having a rookie that high up, taking a rookie that high up, because you just don't know what he's going to do. You don't know if he's going to be able to sustain. You don't know how many carries he can take. You just don't know what he's going to do. And his flex spot, he's got Reggie Bush. I'm going to throw that out. I don't like Reggie Bush. He's going to give you 10 points, 20 points one week, and then he's going to give you 0. And in fantasy, I think it's all about consistency. If you put up 100 points or around 100 points every single week, I think you're going to have a positive record. I think you're going to be in the playoffs. And I think Reggie doesn't put you anywhere there. On the same note, he's got Miles Austin, who's the number 4 fantasy receiver last year. I think Miles Austin is going to have a way down year. He got 200 fantasy points last year. I think he's going to be more down in the 150 range this year, and averaging more that 10 to 9 points per game. I just don't see him getting as many long yards as he did last year. They're going to definitely be focusing on him, and with the emergence of Dez Bryant, I think later in the year, I think is going to hurt Miles Austin. The rest of his bench is his weakest. Tim Hightower, you don't know where he's going to be. Anthony Dixon from San Francisco, he's the 3rd running back. I just don't see him in the game as much as I would imagine that Paula does. Other than that, let's see here. She also has Percy Harvin. I don't think the migraines are as big as a problem as some people are saying. He's had migraines ever since high school. So I really, truly don't think that it's going to affect him as much. I think he's still going to have a solid year. I don't think he's a fantasy weekend starter, but he's a solid pickup for. I definitely see her challenging for a playoff spot. I don't see Sucks in the top 3, but battling for that last playoff spot to get beat in the first round, I definitely see. But she definitely has a lot of team players that can definitely be starters and keepers for next year. I see her scary coming down the line. My last middle-of-the-road team, if this is not you, I'm sorry, you can see me in the next section, is GE Packer Killers. Big cry from what they were last year. He sucked last year. I think he did great in the draft. Tony Romo, even though I'm not a big fan of, I think he's going to have a giant fantasy year. He was 6th last year. I think he's going to do the same this year, but I think his points are going to go up. I think he had around 260 this year. I think he's going to be around 280, but still be right behind Schaub in that mid-tier. Steven Jackson, he's been having hurt back, but he's a workhorse. He's a beast. He's probably one of the 2 best running backs in the league. He just doesn't get the notoriety because he's on the Rams. Ryan Grant is another person that I absolutely love on his team from Green Bay. He's a very underrated back. If anything, I think Packer Killers could be the underrated team of the league. He's just filled with players that get it done week in, week out, and just aren't noticed for it. Ryan Grant, Steven Jackson, Joseph Adai, but I think Joseph Adai is going to go down this year because of Donald Brown getting more and more carries. We'll see how that pans out. Donald Brown is kind of porcelain. He breaks a little bit easy. Receiver, he made a big trade with Gabo preseason to get Randy Moss. Definitely going to help him out. I don't see Randy Moss being the number 2 pick this year, just like Brady. I think he's going to fall down a little bit just because Edelman's coming out. Now they're passing for Brady. Welker's still there. He's still going to get his touchdowns. I think he's still going to do what he did last year. He's going to have those huge weeks where he's 25 points, and then he's going to have a week where he's like 6. Either way, Moss is a top-tier receiver. He's good for the team. Dwayne Bowe out of Kansas City, all depends on Matt Castle and how Matt Castle keeps progressing. Zach Miller out of Oakland is a tight end that I love this year. I definitely think he has a chance to crack the top 5, become an elite tight end, especially with getting Jason Campbell in that offense. And Jason Campbell loves his tight end, so I'm expecting a lot of points from Zach Miller this year. He's got Jerome Harrison, which you look terrible in preseason. We'll see how that works. Hakeem Nicks out of New York. We'll see how that goes with that platoon. Just tons of receivers there. You never know who's going to get a lot of points. Santonio Holmes will be big come midseason. Chester Taylor out of the Bears. I don't think he's going to see lineup. And that's it. That's middle tier. Stay tuned and see why you're in the lower tier, buddy.